The king of all travel media has returned once again to the podcast. I am Erik Hastings. Welcome back to Travel Truth and Other Confessions. And this, by the way, is a special edition of the podcast because there's certainly been a lot of news. If you know where to go to look for it, you'll see it. It's kind of on the perimeter of the travel news these days, and I wanted to bring it to your attention now because here we are gearing up for 2021. Here we are the week before Christmas and New Year's. I hope you had a wonderful holiday season. I know it's tough. I know. I'm with you. I know you maybe you didn't have those big family gatherings that you are used to having. I certainly didn't, although it was a great time to hang out with the close family. Sometimes that can be problematic, but as I looked into the eyes of my 11-year-old the other night on Christmas Day, she was getting ready to go to bed. I said, "Did you have a great Christmas?" And she said, "Yeah, I had a great Christmas." I said, "You know what? That's what it's all about to me." So try not to be selfish about your own needs, about what you need for Christmas. It's about everybody else anyway. So anywho, so yes, as we prepare here for the new year, and I don't think it's worth going back and discussing whether or not 2020 needs to be reviewed. I can put a stop to that real quick. Yes, 2020 does not need to be reviewed. It was a dumpster fire, as I have said before many times on this podcast, and we're looking forward to 2021. Now, our production schedule for Beyond Your Backyard, that's the television show we do for PBS, that is already underway. We're already looking at trips for 2021. We did some traveling in the fall and into the winter of 2020, socially distanced, of course, wearing our masks, and the whole cast and crew really paying attention to, and we really wanted to learn whether or not it was even going to be possible to shoot a travel show in the middle of this pandemic, and we learned that it was. I'm very pleased with the episode. So we know we're going to get back on the road in 2021, and maybe you are considering going back and taking a vacation this year. And that's the reason I wanted to talk about the vaccines and the vaccine pass or the vaccine passport. You're going to see words and grouped together like that. They're going to discuss how you're going to prove that not only are you COVID-19 free at the moment, but you have been properly vaccinated. And there are some provisos that I think are worthy of your attention. First of all, if you already have gotten out your 2021 vacation calendar, if you haven't created one yet, indulge me for just a second. I know we have the vaccine information to get to. I want to tell you about Common Pass. That's something that's certainly on the fringe. Clear also is something to be aware of. But if you haven't gotten your 2021 vacation calendar out yet or haven't created one yet, now's the time to do it. Now we're seeing all of those deals out there. We're seeing lots of change fees being waived for, relatively speaking, no reason. You can change flights, you can change hotels. The devil is in the details of that fine print. So in order to get your 2021 vacation calendar going, I don't want to spend too much time on this, but just suffice it to say, look at your schedule and look at the national holidays and look at when you think you might want to be traveling based on your own personal circumstances. Now, Erik, I realize you may be saying, "Erik, I realize you are the king of travel media. I get it. You're so much more intelligent than I am." That's undoubtedly that's what you're thinking. No, but again, you might say, "Well, that's a little obvious, isn't it?" Well, it is, but here's the thing. A lot of times we get wrapped up because travel isn't necessarily, obviously, a necessity. Usually it's a luxury, and we're already dealing with the economic impact of 2020 and so we don't know, there may be some financial concerns, but the thing is, travel plans sometimes, not for people like my sister who plan everything, I might add, sometimes they sneak up on us. And that's why I say, look, if you already know that you want to be traveling for, say, the Christmas holiday or over Hanukkah, or I don't know why you would do that, but whatever, if you want to go see family later on this year, Thanksgiving maybe, start looking at those dates now. And the reason I say start looking at those dates now is because sometimes, not all the time, you can take advantage of travel deals when you book far in advance. I just read a phenomenal article for somebody who was at Walt Disney World down in Florida during this pandemic, and she said, we had a great time. There were lots of positives, but at the end of the day, even Disney, she felt, wasn't worth the dollars spent because of the health pandemic. And that's a really telling thing. That was just one writer's opinion, and I appreciate that. And she just said, it was just expensive. We drove from Salt Lake City down to Florida just to stay off the airlines, and yet even that, in her opinion, her opinion wasn't worth it. So I thought that was very telling that we're seeing some stories like that going on. So looking ahead at 2021, that's why I want to talk about these vaccine passports. And first of all, I want you to be aware this is not a new concept, okay? But proving vaccinations, you may not have had exposure to this, no pun intended. But for instance, this goes all the way back to the 1800s, traveling in and out of Africa with dealing with yellow fever. It was called a yellow card. And you really did have to prove what vaccinations you have. And then those are in place too, even today, prior to the coronavirus. You had to get certain vaccinations to go to certain parts of the world and whatnot and return to this country, et cetera. Anywho, that is not a new concept. But here's what I want you to be aware of. It's going to be a little rocky, at least for the beginning. Okay? Just be aware that it's not going to be standardized. And the reason it's not going to be standardized is because you've got a number of different factors that all have to, and a number of different entities that all have to kind of work together. And you and I both know when everybody gets together and tries to work together, sometimes it's a little problematic. And what I mean by that is the cruise lines, the countries themselves, the airlines. Those are the three big, both the countries that you are visiting and the countries you're returning to. Those are the three biggies right there. Then, of course, you've got the hotels. Then you've got the actual points of interest. Look for theme parks and various things. So they're all going to, so how are we going? And then you have the technology itself. And that's why I spoke with some folks, really a terrific, intelligent human being with Common Pass, and they're a nonprofit organization. Look into that program. They are one of those in contender. IATA Travel Pass also. That's the International Association of Travel Agents. I should know that, but I don't. Not off the top of my head. They've also got a travel pass going on. So again, just off the bat, be aware that you may have to go through a couple of extra steps. But the takeaway here is, at least in the short term, be prepared to provide documentation, recent documentation, that you have had a COVID test, that you have had a negative result, what kind of test, that you have been vaccinated in some cases, which vaccine. Because remember, these vaccines are different in different parts of the world. So again, this is why it's going to be a little rocky. I wouldn't be too concerned about the data that you're sharing. You don't have to, you can share this particular data, but not the rest of your health data. Nevertheless, that's just something I want you to be aware of. Do you have to be concerned about it right now? Not yet. Certainly, if you're traveling within this country, you may be asked to provide some documentation if you're stepping on an airplane. Or in some cases, there are some airlines on some test flights right now that are administering COVID tests, rapid COVID tests at the airport. So that could be the point here, is that this is going to be a part of our new travel normal for a while. And you know what? It's not a bad thing. Because, again, you and I both know that while this pandemic has been devastating, we know that sometimes, sharing a little bit of information about, where you've been, what you've been doing, have you been social distance, are you wearing a mask? Some of that data is good to protect all of us. And again, I realize that also encroaches on our personal, but look, you don't have to travel. I want you to. There's certainly a multi-gazillion-dollar industry that wants you to, and that includes your local restaurants, that includes your local bars, your local museums. That includes, I just read an interesting article about the bus industry that we probably haven't really thought much about. Greyhound is reporting, I think they said they're at 80%, I'm sorry, at a 20% capacity. Like they're down 80% of its ridership just disappeared like overnight. I mean, that's pretty significant in my opinion. So be on the lookout for vaccine passport, vaccine pass, all of these, those stories are going to come out. Do you have to be concerned about it? Not too much yet, unless you're planning international travel, but be on the lookout for it, and be on the lookout for the fact that, and start to be okay with the fact that you may have to do this in order to travel. That is my point for you today, and I wanted to share that quickly as we look to 2021. Thank you for listening. This is Travel Truth and Other Confessions. I am Erik Hastings, the self-proclaimed king of all travel media. I mean, this is it. I mean, what other podcast could you possibly need to listen to when you want to talk travel? I mean, come on. Be sure to watch the television program Beyond Your Backyard. It's on PBS stations. That's Public Broadcasting, the Create channel, as well as, IMDb. We're on that streaming service, which is cool. And then we have new streaming services as well. If you forget all of this, just go to erikthetravelguy.com. You can find it there. And be sure to like, rate, subscribe, share this podcast as well. That's at traveltruthandotherconfessions.com. It means a lot to us, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.